straight out to Wendy Murphy, former prosecutor and law professor at New England Law, Boston. Also, I think a mother of 5, if I'm not wrong. You're there in Massachusetts. Will this woman ultimately be charged with murder? Should she?
You bet she will, and of course she should. Look, we don't know everything the defense is planning, but what we know from the prosecution side is that this child had injuries that caused death, and that the only person who could have done it was this nanny. We're talking about classic signs, thus far, classic signs of shaken impact trauma. Now remember, you and I worked on the case together way back when, the nanny trial. Louise Woodward, the nanny from England, who committed a similar kind of offense and killed a little boy and was convicted of murder. They reduced it to manslaughter, and the defense made a lot about how she didn't do it. And these injuries are not always clearly caused by the nanny, because maybe there's some other explanation. Well, make no mistake, the experts that testified in that trial back then are going to be even better in this case. And I don't care what anybody says about where this child was before. When the prosecution says on day one, the only person who could have caused these injuries was this nanny, you bet she'll be charged with murder.
And by the way, we have attempted to reach the attorney for this nanny, have been unable to, but the attorneys are invited on anytime. Any representative for this woman can come on our show and give their side. We want to hear all sides. We've been able to piece together a rough timeline based on published reports. Monday, January 14th, this happened just a couple of weeks ago. The child wakes up at about 8 in the morning. Around the same time, the nanny shows up for work. And about 9:30 in the morning, the mother leaves for work, and the nanny is alone with little Rima. From 10 to 1:15 in the afternoon, the child reportedly naps and eats, and she plays with the child. Rima's grandparents even come by. Now, it's a nanny share, so a different mother then drops off an additional child at the home. Then suddenly, at 4:42 p.m., the call to 911 is made. Something is very wrong with this child. Prosecutors believe the deadly injuries happened between 1:30 and 4:30 in the afternoon, when little Rima was found seizing in her crib. 2 days later, the child dies. Aislinn Brady, the nanny, reportedly told cops the child woke up that morning, quote, cranky as usual, and said she was a, quote, fussy eater. So, Dr. Judy Ho, clinical psychologist, do those not so nice statements about the child by the nanny reveal that she was very frustrated with this child to begin with and even had a hostile attitude toward her?
Well, I think that's certainly congruent with what we know about her past. You know, she is somebody who can get emotional, who can fly off the handle. We're hearing this and we're seeing the evidence from all of the different allegations that are now coming out about her violent history. And so that could certainly be a precursor if she's emotional about the child, especially those negative emotions, that later on she just loses it. And we know that sometimes people love their children and yet they still abuse their children when they get emotional. And so even if the defense is saying, hey, this nanny really loves the children she cares for, she cares about children, it doesn't really matter, because if she loses it when she gets emotional, she is capable of anything. And some of the stories that are coming out about her from previous are so egregious, you know, her biting the pinky of her roommate and throwing bottles